All right.
All righty. If folks can go ahead and mute their mics while we're doing the initial statements, and then we'll open things up to questions. As usual, I'll just kind of go around the quote unquote room and give everybody a turn to ask questions. We usually have time for at least a couple rounds. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll toss it over to Chancellor White to give us a brief introduction and kick us off. Chancellor.
Great. Well, thanks. And thanks, Marmy, and thanks all of you for joining us. And I just wanted to share some news that hopefully, well, I guess you all saw it since you've joined us. But you know, until recently, UAF had a full-time athletic director. That's a model that's common at many universities. But for the last 18 months, we went a little bit different direction and worked with a new model where the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs also serves as the athletics director. That model does a couple of things. One is it integrates athletics more into the student experience. You know, one of the challenges with that model, though, is it's a lot of work. It's really two jobs for one person. And of course, Dr. Keith Champagne, who's our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and has also been then serving as this athletics director for the last 18 months. It's a dual role for him. And you know, one of the things that we've learned is there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need for time in our student affairs section, and there's a lot of need in athletics. And so we're going to go back to the full-time athletics director model. I think this is a positive thing for Nanook athletics. I think it'd be a positive thing for the community as it's just putting more resources behind the athletics department and more, you know, indicate just a doubling down on our commitment to the 10 programs that we have here at UAF. You know, a lot of work, of course, with the conference, the hockey conference, as you know, WCHA is splitting apart. And so we need a lot of extra focused attention right now on that. And of course, the venue for the Nanooks hockey, the Carlson Center, we continue to plan to use the Carlson Center, but there's work to be done there. So, you know, as we go down that path and work with our community and our supporters, donors and fans, we want to get a full-time athletics director in place. So as we make that transition, I've asked Peggy Keiper, Dr. Peggy Keiper, who is director of the Sport and Recreation Business Department at UAF, to serve as the interim athletic director while we search. My expectation is that the search will commence in the next month, and that we will shoot to have a full-time athletic director in place by the end of June. Of course, Peggy comes with lots of experience, both as a collegiate athlete herself, as a coach, as years of experience in marketing and communications and community relations in sports. So really happy to have her on board, new energy and direction for our athletics program. And I'll just turn it over to Peggy if you have anything that you'd like to share before we go to questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Well, I'm extremely excited to be here and to take on the role. I'll keep it short and sweet, in that I really want to support our current staff and coaches and student athletes and in the process of finding a new athletic director. And I couldn't be more excited to take the role, is the gist of it. I think I bring a lot of assets to the table in supporting the current staff, and I look forward to it.
All right, thank you so much, Peggy. We'll go ahead and swap over to questions, and I'll start off with you, Jordan, since you're who I see first on my screen. Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yeah, sure. First, congratulations, Dr. Keiper, on the position. I know with your experience at UAF, some of the athletes themselves have been students of yours. So how do you think that sort of relationship and dynamic that you already have established will help, moving forward with this process.
Thanks, Jordan. It's great to see a former student on here too. So, and kudos to you, because I know you came through our program. So, I don't see the dynamic changing. To me, it's a chance to get closer with athletes and help them more. I obviously was a former student athlete and a former college coach. So I just look at it as another way to support student athletes. I'm excited to work with them. So.
All right, thank you. Let me go next to Sam Ferreira. Sam, do you have a question you'd like to ask?
I'm all good right now. Thank you.
All right, very good. Nathan? Oh, not Nathan. Sorry, I keep calling on you, Nate. I don't, maybe it's because it's just your first name there. Aaron Walling, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Chancellor White. Last time you guys did a full search for a chancellor was back in 2018, and it was a long, lengthy process. Do you guys foresee it being as long as that process? And are you guys also looking for a candidate that's looking more long-term, longer than, say, 3 years?
Great. Well, thanks for the question. And just to be clear, we're not searching for a chancellor, just for an athletics director.
My bad, athletic director. I apologize.
Well, it's not that I know of, but anyhow, yeah, no. It's my expectation that we'll have the position. My hope is that the position will be filled at the end of June. So I don't expect it to be a long and drawn out process. It will be a national search. Obviously, internal, local, state candidates, we're encouraging, but also we'll look across the national scene. And as I get a committee together, we'll be sure to include the community in that committee and lots of different perspectives. But my hope is that it moves fairly quickly. And when we look for a permanent full-time AD, that's what we mean is somebody who's gonna stay and gonna continue to build our athletics programs and build the Nanook brand as we go forward. Support our athletes, support our coaches, and support the program.
Awesome, thank you very much. Bruce, Check, did you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yeah, is Peggy interested in this job on a full-time basis? Will she be applying for the job? And is Carolyn Oates still helping out in athletics?
I can answer the full-time part. I am not interested in it full-time. I view it as a period to transition to the next full-time athletic director. For me, my heart and passion lives with the sport and recreation business program and UAF athletics, but I will be going back to faculty after the search is complete. And TO is still with athletics, and I'll let Dan add on to that too, but I really look forward to working with her. TO and I have a good relationship. We have ironically played against each other in college when I was coaching at Lynn University and she was at St. Leo in Florida, which we realized when she took the job. But I really look forward to working with TO. So if Dan wants to add anything with that, go for it.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. I mean, I think we're adding resources. This is an ad. So Peggy's role as the interim AD doesn't change other people's roles. It just adds to the resources available to athletics.
Excellent. Jordan, did you have another question you'd like to ask?
Sure. Another question for Peggy. Last few years, the athletic department has seen some challenges, especially this year, of course. But what can you say about the support from the community, from the outside perspective, and also the support from the administration over these last few years here? Have you seen that from your perspective on the outside there?
Sure. I think you've seen from an internal perspective, there's a clear investment in athletics from Dan, from UAF, from statewide. UAF is committed to athletics, and that has been clear to me. You don't go through financial exigency and keep all your sports, and so that is something to me that there's a clear investment in athletics internally, and I've seen that, and that's been really great to see. From an external perspective, I think you see the same thing, and I think there's the only place to go is but up with external engagement, and getting there's so many groups in the community of Fairbanks that are invested in athletics, from stakeholders like ticket holders, sponsors, the Face Off Club, alumni groups, and from an external perspective, those people have been behind athletics since day one, and they're going to continue to be behind athletics, and the hope is to get them even more engaged. So I hope that answers your question.
Excellent. Sam, did you have a question?
Yeah, for Chancellor White, I know you mentioned with some of the stuff going on as far as conference realignment with the hockey program and looking at the future of the Carlson Center, it seems like there's just maybe some big decisions coming up for the athletic department. Did that play a big role in deciding that it was time to find somebody to be the full-time athletic director?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of what the question was there, but just the other things. I mean, I think, one of the things that COVID, COVID has been a really challenging time. And I think, as I talk to folks around campus, there's a thought of, well, athletics was really quiet during COVID and didn't, was not a lot going on. And exactly the opposite was the case. I mean, athletics has been super busy trying to just figure out how we will get the testing done, how teams would travel, how teams would play, how the conferences would realign. And so I think, and I mentioned it in my earlier remarks, that as we kind of have looked through this COVID period, there is just a lot of work, a lot of internal work and a lot of external work that oftentimes during a regular playing season you may not see, but we've sure seen the need for dedicated attention and more dedicated attention and resources to kind of weathering storms, whether as Peggy mentioned, the exigency in the budget, but also COVID, and as you say, Sam, the conference realignment. I mean, there may well be a national conference realignment, and as that plays out, obviously, we want to make sure that UAF is well represented in that conversation and ends up in a great place for Nanook athletics.
Thank you. Aaron, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question for Chancellor White. When the job for the search for the next athletic director, what are some selling points that you guys are going to have to give to these candidates as they look at your guys' university?
Yeah, I think that that Peggy hit it on the head that when she said that, where we want to go is up, and if you're an athlete, you want to play with a competitive program, and we've got a great hockey program. We've got a great, in fact, you've probably heard me say before that there is no rifle team in the country that has won more consecutive or has won more consecutive NCAA playoff berths than UAF. In fact, there's no other team in any other sport, in any other division, in any other university that's had more NCAA playoff berths than the Alaska Nanook rifle team. But we have a great skiing program. Our basketball programs are growing. I think if I were a candidate looking at the AD job from outside, I would see a university that's on the cusp of doing great things, a university that wants to grow, and a university that is demonstrated, as Peggy mentioned, through the most difficult times in our history, that we have our 10 programs and we continue to value them and move them forward.
All right, thank you. Bruce, did you have another question?
Yeah, I got a question. With UAA's hockey program in limbo, we up for the challenge that it's going to be a little bit more expensive to compete with hockey, maybe in 21-22 and on the way. And have we heard any word about a possible spring season for Nanook volleyball?
Well, I'll give a couple quick answers and then turn it over if Peggy wants to weigh in there. Maybe I'll start with with hockey, and I think that the dynamic certainly changes. You know, I think there is still a significant effort in Anchorage to keep hockey, and so I think that remains a possibility. I don't know where they are in the fundraising that was kind of set as a metric for the board, but whether UAA has as hockey or not, we're committed to our hockey program, and we're committed to a nationally competitive program and being in a conference that allows us to reach those heights. So, you know, I think it is playing out and has yet to play out. You know, what'll happen in Anchorage. We're obviously very interested to know what happens there. We love the Governor's Cup. It's when we have the most people in the Carlson Center is when it's the Governor's Cup. But we'll take the dynamics that come our way and continue to be committed to a nationally competitive hockey program. Your other question, the fall to spring sports, volleyball. Volleyball was in the GNAC, of course, moved along with soccer. We don't have soccer, but for the other schools, moved from fall to spring. The schedule was not set to start until March, but there was a January deadline to decide whether to have a season or not. There is a meeting this afternoon with the GNAC. The GNAC CEOs, so I will be joining the GNAC. We have a recommendation from the athletics directors on what they think might happen. It's fairly tricky because the Washington schools, as I understand it, are not allowed to leave Washington to compete. And Simon Fraser in Canada, we also have problems getting in or out of Canada, as do they. So it's going to be tricky. You know, our hope is just like other sports. Our hope is to leave the door open and to allow for the opportunity, if we get to the point of play, to be able to play. So we'll know more after today what the options are for volleyball. But you know, as I mentioned, you know, our strategy will be to leave the door open for our athletes and our coaches to play as long as we possibly can, and then to play if that's possible for us. Thanks. And then I don't know, Peggy, was there anything else?
I think on the hockey front, I think it was Bruce that asked the question, correct? I think you can get creative, that it doesn't, just because say if UAA does not come back, which we hope they do, but if they don't, that doesn't necessarily have a negative impact on UAF. It could be positive in that the state of Alaska we would want the state of Alaska to embrace UAF as their hockey team, just like the Ice Dogs. And I think you can get creative in your scheduling. And I know Eric Largen, Coach Largen, he's great. He is aware of ways to be creative in scheduling, you know, like having a team come up for 3 home games or playing them 3 times instead of 2, or playing a maybe heavier away schedule, or having games down in Juneau and Anchorage to kind of have the state embrace UAF hockey. So I don't believe that if UAA doesn't come back, it doesn't mean it's a negative impact on UAF hockey. It could potentially be a positive impact. And though we want UAA hockey to come back, I do want to emphasize that. So that's all I would add.
Excellent, thank you. It looks like we can probably do one more round of questions if folks want. We've got quite a bit of time left. We'll come back to you, Jordan, if you have one final question.
Sure, one more for Chancellor White. Although Dr. Champagne won't have the athletic director tag on him, but I don't imagine him being absent of many of these decisions. So could you touch on Champagne's involvement in athletics still and going forward for UAF?
Yeah, good. Thanks for that question, Jordan. And of course, yeah, Keith continues as our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. That's a huge job. All of our enrollment, our residence halls, food service, registrar, student services, student health and counseling. That's a big job. But you know, Keith is passionate about athletics, and he's passionate about all the teams. You know, hockey, basketball, rifle, skiing, swimming. He's passionate about our athletes, and so you know, you see me at all the games. you see Peggy, you'll see Peggy there. You'll continue to see Keith there, I would imagine, because it's it's a love, and I think you see that in a lot of our fans and our supporters and other people around the university who may not directly be involved in management, but just love the sport and love the athletes and the experience. So yeah, good question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Marmion,
Yep.
I don't know if Dr. Lupinek has any questions. I see Dr. Lupinek has joined us.
He messaged me privately and said he was just listening in.
Oh, okay.
Sam, did you have a final question?
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right. How about Aaron? Do you have any final questions?
I do not.
All right, Bruce, it's to you. You get the last word here, or at least the last question.
I'm good. Congratulations and go nuts.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate your being here and appreciate your support of Alaska Nanooks.
I echo that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. This will be up on the news download site, the press download site, probably within the next 15 minutes. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks.
See you.